Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a few minutes and show you how I fixed the projectile collision problem that we were having. Essentially, the heart of the matter was that I had two characters, right? The hero and then the monster. And both of them were just regular characters. Now, the character class comes with a capsule component. And the object type, as far as collision is concerned, is object type pawn. And that has certain block, ignore, and overlap settings that are a preset according to that object type. But I have the collision set up on the magic projectile, and I wanted it to be able to hit the capsule of the enemy monster and have that register the hit. So I made that projectile block pawn because pawn is the object type assigned to the capsule. So that is also true for our hero's capsule. So all I had to do was make a new object channel. And again, you've seen me do this before, but if we go into project settings, oh, my computer's lagging. Hang on one second. Go into project settings. And we go into collision right here, you can see I've made more than I need actually, but you'll notice that I made a new object type and trace called player pawn. Okay. And all I needed to do is just simply change the object type on the capsule to player pawn so that it was a different object technically compared to the the capsule around the enemy monster. And that fixed it because I could set it to ignore the projectile. So when our character capsule, okay, when the default for a character capsule component is actually pawn, okay? So I could not have my cake and eat it too because I had the same object type for both capsules. So what I did on this one is I just changed the object type after I created it in project settings. And then I wanted it to ignore projectile and ignore projectile trace. I think those are the only things that I changed. And you'll see now that when I go into play, that the projectile is not getting stuck at my location. All right, so let's walk up here, and I want to show you a couple of other things that have changed. So there's the enemy. It's going to come charging at me in a second. Okay. So that's the first thing I want you to notice is that I created a sound cue for its footsteps. The sound cue, by the way, was easy to make because mainly what I did is I duplicated the sound cue for our hero's footsteps, and I used modulators just to lower the pitch, and I added a couple more samples in there from starter content, Explosion 1 and Explosion 2, and I also used modulators with those to lower their pitch, to give it a heavier sound. And I just balanced the volume a little bit differently among the different layers using the mixer inside of the sound cube. I did, of course, have to place the anim notifies in the walking and running animations that are being used by the strong demon. Okay. And also, don't forget this. If you want your strong demon to be able to play animation montages, what you have to do in its animation blueprint, okay, which we can navigate to, browse to asset and content browser. Okay, there it goes. I want to just remind you of this in case you're having trouble playing montages. And you can see I've got my notifies happening right here, just triggering at least the sound. And one more thing, a camera shake. I hope you noticed that while it was walking, that the camera the camera shake simulated sort of like the earth vibrating, and it gave extra gravitas, extra weight to the sound of its heavy footsteps, and I think that was an enhancement. Nevertheless, in the anim graph right here, I want you to remember that after you retarget the animations, that you want to make sure that in your animation blueprint that you've got the default slot inserted right before the final output pose. Okay. Otherwise, your creature is not going to be able to play animations. So that's just a reminder. And I think you all remember to do that already. Okay. So, I also did some additional scripting inside of the daemon blueprint. Let me just get my screen recording controls out of the way for a second. All right, so now we have this hit registering properly on the capsule component, okay? Because the capsule on the daemon is just the normal pawn capsule. And if we go down to the collision, you can see that it is blocking projectile, okay, blocking projectile trace and blocking projectile. That is not the case in our hero, just as a reminder. It's a different object type, player capsule, and let me see. Yeah, okay, so I made a couple identical alternative object types, but I just switched it to player capsule. And that matched one of the new object types that I made, and I disabled, I told it to ignore the projectile and the projectile trace. But everything else is essentially the same. So that's why the projectile is not going to get stuck in there. Okay, so back to our strong demons blueprint. So it's registering the hit. And because I didn't want it to spam, occasionally on hit and overlap events, it might detect several impacts. That can happen. And I only wanted for each impact to cause, one instance of the health deduction. Now, I did make a health variable. Okay, you can see the health variable that I made here, and that is a float. And I set the default value to 100. So I'm handling all of the health right up front because there's going to be a branch coming up that's going to take two paths. One of them, I check the condition of the health, and if it's less than or equal to 0, if that's true, then true is the death path. I commented that out, and the rest of the code there is what happens when it dies. And then off of false, if it is not less than or equal to 0, that means that it hasn't died yet, so it can continue coming after us and stuff. Okay, so do once. For every impact, for every hit impact, what we're doing is I'm subtracting 20 from its health. If I wanted it to be different, I could hard code it different. I could make a variable for this, I suppose, and store the value in the variable. You can also pull off of this pin and use random float in range if you want it to be a little bit unpredictable, how many times you have to hit the demon. But I just figured I'd set this to 20, so it was more predictable for me, but I can always go back and change that. So the health is then being set. Okay, the current health minus 20 is being set every time the demon gets hit. All right. Now we have this condition, which is if the health gets to a point where it's less than or equal to 0, it goes down the true path of this branch. So what I have scripted here is basically what we normally do to get it ready to play an anim montage. Disable movement, stop movement immediately off of the character movement component. And I have it playing an anim montage, and if I hover here, you can read that. It was the Death 1 animation, okay? And that was one of the ones that came with the Strong Demon pack. It has like 3 different death animations, and Death Animation 1, or Death 1, is the one that I chose, okay? I did make that into a montage so that I could play it here, and there's something important that I need to tell you about that montage a little bit later, okay? So it plays the montage, and as it's playing the montage, notice I didn't put a delay after this because I don't really need anything to resume after the montage is finished in this case. At least not with regard to animation. So following them, or excuse me, concurrently with the montage, I'm playing a sound, and I made another sound cue, which is just the death of the monster, and I constructed that very similarly to all of the other monster sounds I just found in the human vocalizations pack. In one of the male folders, I found a death cry. And in the sound cue, I just detuned it. I guess I can show you. So actually, let me just find that. Strong Demon. Let's look at the sound cue that I made. It's right here. Okay. So these are the two samples. And this one I tuned down to zero point 0.5, and this one I tuned down to 0.3, so the pitches are different. I mixed them together, I guess, equally, and that's it. So it sounds like this. When it dies, okay? So that was very, very easy to make. I could also have recorded myself on an iPhone or a microphone, if I had, the equipment to do that, or if you had the equipment to do that, and it would be better fidelity. But yeah, if you make a recording on an iPhone, there are ways to clean up that audio and make it usable. And remember, the wind in this scene I recorded with my iPhone, and that turned out just fine. Okay, so we've got the ability to kill this thing now. I'll show that to you. Should take 5 shots. Sorry about the glitchiness of the audio is because I'm doing a screen recorder at the same time as playing the game. So we'll run up here, get the monster's attention so it starts chasing us. I also have it so that if I shoot it, then it will start chasing me off of that as well. So he should turn around. So that was 1 shot. That's 2. His health is now 60. Hopefully you're noticing the print string. His health is now 40. Now his health is 20. Should just take 1 more hit. And notice he falls down and plays that death cry. And then a few seconds later, he blows up. Okay, and that was just a placeholder explosion. I thought it might be cool to get like a particle system that is like a blood splatter or guts or something like that. You can get particle systems that do those sorts of things. And of course, we could replace that explosion from starter content with anything we want, both the visual effect and the sound effect. So those are placeholders. So the scripting is still not in the animation blueprint, excuse me, but in the regular character blueprint for the demon. If we follow this along, he plays the death montage and the death cry. And then I just did an arbitrary delay of 7 seconds because that felt right to me. And I want to basically destroy the actor, but there are some things that I need to do before destroying the actor. So I have to simulate the actor's destruction by set actor hidden in game, okay, using that node. And as soon as it gets this far, after these 7 seconds, the actor is no longer going to be visible. And at the same time, it's going to spawn this explosion. So it's going to look like the demon has disappeared in the explosion, so to speak. And I increased the scale of that emitter by a lot. Oops, that's supposed to be 555, not 5550, but whatever. So I made it bigger, okay, it's just so that it was big enough to encompass the whole body the corpus of the monster. And I played that explosion sound. And remember, this is a placeholder. And then it's no longer visible. As far as the player is concerned, that monster is gone and dead and destroyed. But technically, it's still in memory. So I applied another delay of half a second just so that any garbage collection has enough time to take place. And then I call destroy actor. Calling it now is fine because the character is already invisible. Okay. As far as the player is concerned, they can't see that. Okay. So that is a brief rundown of how I made all of that work. So we'll recompile and save. I haven't set up the collisions on her blade yet or the sound effects, but I want to make sure that one thing that I do include are movement noises and effort sounds. Oops, I forgot to go into play for when she's using that ability. Okay. Okay, she's making the effort sounds, but I want to have like sort of body movement sounds in there and some whooshing and swinging sounds from the blade. I think that that's going to be best accomplished using animation notifies, and we can use those in the animation blueprints event graph to call the sound effects. Play sound at location works the same way in the animation blueprint as it does in the main character blueprint, but this time the events are going to be triggered from notifies. And we will use collisions. You notice that I don't even remember if I put collision around that blade yet. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so we're going to use hit events in order to make sure that we get impact sounds for when that blade connects. Okay? But I have not implemented that yet, and I'm going to soon. Also, over the weekend, I'm going to compose 3 or 4 pieces of music. One of them is going to be the wandering around music. The other is going to be danger, you've entered a dangerous area. And then once combat begins, as soon as the demon notices me, it'll switch into combat music. And then if the demon gets killed, you'll hear a victory theme, and then it will transition back into the wandering music for my next encounter, should it happen. Okay, and that'll be a system that I'll demonstrate and make a video for, and it'll be reusable, so you can use it throughout your game for any other encounters you might have with enemies. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk to you about is this camera shake. So I made a folder called Camera Shakes, and there you can see I made this class. It's a blueprint class actually called CS underscore camera shake. That is underscore demon walk. So let me show you what happens or how to make a camera shake asset in the first place. So you're going to right click, go to blueprint class and click it. Now this is going to be found under all classes. So you do have to type camera shake. And the one that you want is this one, camera shake base, that one. Okay. And you can select that and that will create the class for you. So we'll do CS underscore shake underscore O2. Okay. And when we open this up, there's not going to be a ton to see really, because we're just going to be manipulating some settings here. Okay. Here in the details panel. So mainly what we're going to do is we are going to set a shake pattern first. And the one that I used and the one that's going to give you sort of like randomness in the shake is this one, Perlin Noise Camera Shake Pattern. And then we can vary the frequency and amplitude of every axis, I beg your pardon, of any of these properties. Okay, so field of view, amplitude and frequency, and then there are these timing settings down at the bottom that I'll explain. Okay, So, and then there's a global multiplier for amplitude and frequency at the top. So, what I did is I used estimation for location. I thought, how much do I want it to wiggle on the x axis and the y axis and the z axis? And I set different values for each one of these. And how quickly did I want the oscillations to take place? Again, I set different values for each one of them. And these are in, by the way, these are in hertz, literally in hertz. The amplitude is in unreal units, okay? So, but the frequency is in hertz. I did not change the rotation. Camera shakes rarely incorporate rotation, but it has its place in certain events. I mean, in certain circumstances, let's say you're like on a boat or something like that, and that boat is sinking. It's a big ship and it's sinking and it's tipping back and forth with the high tides of the ocean waves or whatever. You might want to do slow rotations on a camera shake. That could be cool. And for pitch, I don't know if I did any pitch. I probably didn't, but definitely did some yaw, which is the uh, sort of like the side to side rotation. And I don't think I did any roll because that would give you like a Dutch angle on the camera. There's a place for that too. I did some adjustments in the amplitude and frequency for the field of view. And then finally, at the bottom, we can specify the duration of the camera shake and whether or not it blends in and blends out. Okay. So if we look at the actual camera shake that I'm using, I can just go ahead and save that. I didn't make any changes. Or did I? Well, it's doing an autosave just then. So here you can just see the values that I used. If you wish, you can copy them if you want. Let me disclose everything so you can see what I did and what I didn't do. Okay. And this will just allow you to kind of estimate the types of values that resulted in the look that I got. Okay. So for location, I did an amplitude of 5 and a frequency of 1 on the x-axis. That's the forward axis. I didn't want it to be moving forward and backward very much. That's why I set the amplitude on the lower scale. And on the y side to side axis, I wanted it to displace even more, but more slowly. So I set the, but more quickly, I beg your pardon. So I set the frequency multiplier to 3 hertz, 3 times a second. And for Z, I set it to an amplitude of 15 and a different value, 3.5 seconds, or 3.5 hertz, which means 3.5 oscillations per second. I didn't do anything to the rotation, pitch, roll, or yaw. I did for the amplitude of the field of view. So I set that to 10 units and for it to happen slowly so that it's 0.5 hertz. Okay, so that's the slowest of all of the oscillation frequencies that I made. I also shortened the total duration because I didn't want it to last very long. I wanted it to be sort of dying out by the time that the next footstep happens, okay? I could probably shorten that even more. But these were not the initial values that I had. I started with estimates, and then I played the game and checked how it felt, and then I just tweaked them a little more. Now, at the top here for the location, you've got multipliers, and these are set to 1 right now, but if I feel like I have a camera shake that I like, but it's happening too fast or too slow, I can globally scale the frequency and keeping all of the frequency parameters in proportion. So globally, this will scale them all. And the same thing with the amplitude. If I feel like I'm not seeing enough movement, or perhaps I'm seeing too much movement, I can scale the amplitudes together with this. But I think I got it right and didn't need to do that. So let's just make sure that's compiled and saved. And I'm going to show you what these do. Okay, for instance. Okay, so let's go to where the demon is. And by the way, it does have a fall off. So the closer the demon gets to me, the more profound the camera shake is going to be. And we'll look at that implementation in just a moment. Okay, so hopefully you noticed that intensifying. And if I were to multiply the frequency, let's say just the frequency and the amplitude, let's say by 5, this is going to be out of control. But I just want you to see how you can globally scale everything in your camera shake. Oops. My line trace must not have hit. What's wrong with him? He's colliding with something else that I have to disable. But look at that camera shake. It's wildly out of control. Okay, so let's go fix that. Put it back to where it was. 1 and 1. Or I can show in the other direction. Let's say 0.5 and 0.5. I'll compile and save that. And this is going to feel, I think, too slow. All right, so I just played with it until the camera shake felt appropriate to me. Okay, that's not the right one, and I want to put the one that we are actually using back to the settings that I settled on. All right, compile and save. And in my, it's in the implementation, I beg your pardon, is in the Strong Demons animation blueprint. So let's find that by selecting the mesh, and I'll use the Browse to Asset button. Here is the animation blueprint for the demon. So, of course, we implemented the notifies for the footfalls the same way as we did for our main character. Here in the event graph, I got the anim notify demon footfall. And by the way, for the demon, I think I made a blend space for that, but I just want to show you that in the, hold on a second, demon search. Might be in the wrong folder. Let's see. I'll find this for you. One sec. Okay, so let's go to Strong Demon, Animations, Unique Animations. These are the ones that it came with. Okay, so let's look for Walk. And here's that animation sequence. So you can see I placed footfall notifies there. And I did that for Run also, but I had to give them a different name, right? Because our character has its own footfall notifies, and these need to have a different name. So I called it Demon Footfall. And I did that for the walk animation and the run animation. Okay, so now I need to go back to the animation blueprint, clear my search, and it's right there. Okay, so I'm using those notifies as the event, and every time the notify fires, it gets the actor. You could promote it to a variable, I suppose. That wouldn't hurt anything. But then I just did play sound at location, just like we normally do, and I selected the special cue that I made for the demon's walking sound. And at location means that it's going to be spatialized, right? So I had to use get actor location off of the return value of get actor of class, or you could have casted to it. I'm finding though that in Unreal Engine 5, casting in the animation blueprint, if I did cast to strong demon, okay, if I did this, then the object would be try get pawn owner. But I've been finding lately that this in Unreal Engine 5, even though this is the procedure, um, and would give me the same reference, has not been as reliable. The cast has been failing, or this has been returning nothing, and that this has been more reliable for me. But you can try it both ways and, compare, see what gives you better results. Normally, I'd be inclined to cast. If this was Unreal Engine 4, I would have done it this way. But, things change, and this works better for me. So I'll go ahead and delete the cast, but we still can get that reference so we can get the location of the demon so it knows where to play the sound. And then following that, the node to play the camera shake, and you can call this basically from anywhere, any blueprint, whether it's a character blueprint or any other actor blueprint or even the level blueprint, or here, as you can see inside of an animation blueprint, you can call play world camera shake, and all you have to do is find the one that you made, okay? And I popped it in there. Now it has an inner radius and an outer radius, and that is almost the same as when you spatialize a sound, right? In its attenuation radii. The fall off parameter, you can experiment with this between 0 and 1, and it just determines basically I would like to say the transfer function, but that's probably not the best way of putting it. When you're talking about fall off of audio, you might recall that there are different fall off shapes. Technically, those are kind of like transfer functions, like the inverse square fall off or the linear fall off. This is similar to that, except for that it's not presets. So what I would recommend that you do is just experiment with values between 0 and 1 if you want to get an idea of how this affects the feel of the camera shake. So I think you probably remember what it was before. So let's try setting it to 0 and see if we can perceive any difference. Yeah. Okay. So it seems like it's not tapering nearly as much at a greater distance when it's set to 0. So I think that the fall off is going to be more of a gradual fall off between the inner and outer radius when it's closer to 1, and less of a fall off. Less of an attenuation, so to speak, when it's closer to 0. So let's fix that because that sucked. Let's see, where was that in the animation blueprint? I'll set the fall off to 1. Okay, so that gives it a smooth fall off from the inner radius, 100 units around the demon. Okay, because that's where its location is starting. So 100 units is the inner radius, and the outer radius is 3,500 units. So if I'm far enough away and the creature is walking, I shouldn't be able to perceive those camera shakes at all. So it's probably patrolling right now. So I'm going to get its attention. Come and get me. Maybe I'm not in the nav mesh bounce volume yet. Okay, there we go. But if it continues to walk around and I'm far enough away, it's not going to affect me, okay? So when it's close, we get very dramatic camera shake. But notice that diminishes over distance. Only problem is that he's pretty fast right now, so I gotta like run away from him. Less intense, getting more intense, until he's right up on me, okay? Oop, I missed. Let me teleport out of here. I gotta work on that. Okay, so, and then he explodes in 7 seconds, right? So one thing I have to conclude by saying is that death animation, I think I had to retarget it from some other animation pack, like the hit reactions. Frankly, there's so many death animations that you've got in this project that you could take your pick. And I just found one that I liked and used it. However, I had to make a montage out of it, right? So let's find that in the code here. Okay, so this is anim montage. This is the death montage, and I'm going to find that. Okay, so this is the montage. This is the animation sequence that I made it out of. Okay, Anim Strong Demon Death 3, or excuse me, Death 1, I think is what I made it from. And then I made a montage out of it, but I had to modify this montage in an important way. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to disable this checkbox right here where it says Enable Auto Blend Out. Because if that is turned on, and it is turned on by default, let me resave this, I'll show you what happens, okay? And it's not desirable. I'm going to have to kill the demon one more time. So this system is only working while he's moving. One more. Now watch. Oh, he didn't die. And there we go. See what happens? Gets back up again. So you don't want that. If it's a death animation and you make a montage out of it to remedy that popping back up again, or anytime you don't want a montage to just continue repeating, you can just disable this Enable Auto Blend Out Boolean right there and just resave your animation and everything is cool. I like our spatialized animals. Very cool soundscape there. Come and get me. He appears to be stuck. Come get me. Hey. Okay, spawn behind him. Get some distance here. Oh, I guess he collided with something else that killed him. Let's do that again. Where is he this time? Okay, he's over there. And then just one more hit ought to do it. Maybe one more after that. Teleport. Weird. There we go. Notice that it's not popping back up again. Okay. By the way, I'm recording on my screen recorder at the same time. I'm getting a pretty decent frame rate, but I did honestly have to lower my graphics settings quite a lot because I'm doing this one on my laptop. So in case you were wondering, normally I have everything on full cinematic. Let's just try that for fun. Watch it crash the engine. I can't even make it do that right now. This is just going to be just to see how the performance tanks when everything is on cinematic. And let's set the material quality to epic. And let's set the lighting quality to production. Lighting quality. Production. Okay. And yeah, my streaming pool is over budget. By the way, if that ever happens to you, go to the console down here and type this. r.streaming.pool size. Well, you got to capitalize both of those. And then hit a space and then just type some ridiculously large number like 20,000. Did I do 2,000? r.streaming.pool size space 20,000. Really? Is my texture streaming still? Oh, you know why? Because I set the graphics all the way up. That's why. Okay. But in any case, the performance is going to be really rotten right now because I maxed out the graphics and I'm screen recording on this stupid Lenovo laptop. Looks nicer. But look at that frame rate, unusable. Now, speaking of these settings, even lowering it from cinematic to epic can sometimes make things not look that much different, but give you some performance back. Let's see if this is any better. A little bit, and then you can start tweaking from there. The nice thing about the settings here is you can query the system to just ask the computer what it thinks that you can handle. Sorry, I had to move my screen recording controls out of the way. So you can click auto, and it'll set it up for you according to what it thinks your computer can do. I don't know why that's not suggesting something less than epic. But the nice thing, though, is that you can see how much impact these things are going to have. Anti-aliasing, in particular, eats up a lot of performance. But how much difference do I see when I set the post-process lower? When I set it really low, it's probably going to look pretty bad. So I'll set that to medium because you know what? I don't see that big a difference, all right? And the shadows, of course, they're going to look best set to cinematic. And by the way, I've got ray traced shadows activated in this project, which is harder on the GPU. But if I set shadows to high, that didn't change very much. Global illumination, as low as you can stand it, you know what I mean? Reflections, textures, medium, effects. That doesn't look that different. That might look too substantially different. Yeah, not that bad. Foliage, that's not horrible. Shading didn't change the look very much. And the landscape, we'll set that to medium as well. I can't even see any difference, right? So now we should have decent performance. And it still looks pretty darn good. Pressed the wrong mouse button. Yeah, one more shot and he's dead, I think. Unless that one didn't register again. Need some distance. Okay. And remember, I set it up to teleport behind it. Hey. I think he's patrolling. Yeah, for some reason, I've got to make this rock not hurt him. I don't know why that's happening. Oh, death by rock collision. Boom. Okay. All right. So, I mean, I lowered the settings quite a bit, and this is a playable frame rate. It's a playable frame rate, despite the fact that I also have my screen recorder capturing this at the same time on my laptop. So, yeah, those are some things that you can do to make your game perform better. Okay, so I suppose that's it for today, and we'll talk. Oh, you know what? I think I have to remind myself whether or not I actually did a video on health systems in the first place. I don't recall. So if I didn't, I'll do one most likely on Sunday. Okay? In the meantime, have a terrific holiday weekend. Happy Thanksgiving and best wishes to you all. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye bye.